All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going live. It is Monday morning. I hope you've got your tea and your coffee. And it is Kirsty Mack and Ruth Major, and we are coming live to you from opposite ends of the world. And as always, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you about my experience of Ruth. So good morning to all of you. I hope, since it was the summer solstice, I hope you stood still, because apparently that's what we're meant to do when we are in summer solstice. And so I'm really delighted to bring you Ruth here today. And this is really important because we're going to talk about, healthy conversations, mental health in the workplace, and get Ruth's experience. And Ruth's experience is vast. Now, I met Ruth, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think it was only last year, right? I think it was only last year. And we bonded over trainers. I think we bonded over trainers. We're now bonding over books. Any conversation I now have with Ruth costs me a fortune because we're back and forth with, have you read this? Have you done that? Have you got this? And so last week's conversation proceeded with 4 books arriving at our house sort of 2 days later. What I love about Ruth is that, when you meet someone who just has that love of what they do, but also the depth in what they do. My coach was saying last night, someone who's authentic, someone who's faking it. And this person absolutely does not fake it. It is someone who, I love seeing people's eyes sparkle. And when Ruth talks about what she does, her eyes sparkle. The depth of her humanity is just wonderful. It always helps to have that beautiful accent as well. I'm not going to lie, that gives an added bonus. And the thing that I love about Common in terms of the business that both Susan and Ruth have is that they're lifelong learners. Every time I've spoken to them since, they've been on a different course and they're finding out about different things because they're so passionate about getting a toolkit together that allows them to have great conversations with people. I'm a sucker for branding, so I love their branding. And I think I tell this to Ruth every single time we have a conversation, because it really, it hits home. And I think that the conversations that they have with people in a private practice, within the community and within business is really important. The guys are new onto LinkedIn, so they're kind of fresh into LinkedIn, but I think they've been working in a stealth way beforehand, because they've been doing so much great work. So I'm super excited to have Ruth here this morning. And I'm very grateful that you said that you would come along, Ruth. So I asked this question of people as the start. It's a Monday morning. We've just had the longest day of the year, apparently. Albeit that people have felt that the longest day of the year has existed since March. What are your top 3 feelings for today?
Oh, goodness. Well, first of all, I feel kind of emotional just listening to your description. Like I could go off in a room now and cry. So I feel blessed today. I feel real and I feel hopeful. Oh. Partly probably because I'm going to go on holidays in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm aiming for, when you have the finish line in sight.
For sure.
And so I'm looking forward to that.
And when you say blessed, what causes you to be blessed and feel blessed?
I just think, just the space we've had lately, just to think, to reflect. I feel really blessed in that.
Yeah.
I think we've had space that I don't think I would have had before in a different way, and I just love that. I love that there's just so many things to think about the minute, to reflect on, and I'm blessed just surrounded by people who really kind of inspire me as well.
And I loved what you one of the articles that you'd written about, I wrote it down, rhythm, relationship and reflect. So it was right at the start of this situation.
Yeah.
And it was about what rhythms, what soothes and grounds you, who matters to you, what are we learning of ourselves and our community. So I'm going to flip it back to you and say, what rhythms, what have been soothing and grounding for you?
Yeah, so some of the rhythms for me have been exercise. So really simple, like coming back into, I've been in a quite a busy period before. So I've rediscovered just like exercising like more frequently, and just how grounded that makes you feel.
Yeah.
I've also, some of the other rhythms are just being outside. I am not naturally an outside girl. Like
But
I'm
you've got a
not.
beautiful space around you,
I'm
haven't you?
not. Yeah, we have loads of men. I live in the countryside, and one of the things I've loved is just being outside more.
Mm.
And yeah, doing that. We live near forest, so I've been in that quite a bit. So those are kind of the rhythms that, and some spiritual practices as well, I find really helpful. So those are kind of the rhythms that I've enjoyed. In terms of relationships, I think, I mean, I've been working at home. My husband's been working at home. I have two teenage daughters. So we've all been at home together. And I think it has been a time where you do really sort of notice the relationships that really matter. And I think as well, like when Susan and I went into lockdown, as a company, we took a little bit of space to prepare for working online, and we just took time to phone people who have been really important to us as a company. And you know that it was just lovely just to connect with people who have helped us along the way, and who are for us and stand with us, and who we support. And so those kind of relationships, I think at a time like this, you really do notice what are the relationships that matter. And then kind of it reflecting, I think, as I said before, we have had a bit more time to reflect. And I think I've really noticed that even though I'm really relational and I love being around people, and that gives me so much energy, I've really enjoyed just a little bit of space to catch up with myself. Yeah. And engage a bit more in silence and stillness. And those things have actually been really, really good for me.
I love that. I think we had a conversation right at the start that perhaps we're extroverts on our own terms. It's just that all of a sudden when we had these people around us going, okay, I'm an extrovert, but actually just really enjoying that stillness. I know we've got a few extroverts that are listening in this morning already, so I'm going to say a big hi to Bev, Nicole, Steve, Victoria, Hannah. Hannah says hi to you too. Nicole, Di, Mark, Janet, and Jason. Jason, I didn't know you were there now. So big hi to all of you. If you've got any questions as we go through, then just let them in. A beautiful morning to every single one of you. And what I also loved is we were having a conversation. I'm always really curious about themes that are coming up. And one of the other things that I know we had a conversation about, and a really lovely conversation about the transition piece is that because you've got a bit of a song that you like that kind of links into this, and it was just recently you wrote about that. Just so I'd be interested in your thoughts about the transition element, and then what themes are coming up in your practice just now.
Yeah, so about last year, I went to a amazing gig, Mumford and Sons. I feel like I'm doing a bit of a promotion for them.
I'll have it in the background of the edit.
But at the end of the night, I found myself like crying at a song, and I mean like properly crying, like not like sort of just a little tear,
ugly
proper
crying,
ugly crying,
committed.
And it was just one of those real visceral kind of experiences. I just felt it everywhere in my body. And I got home, and it made me just a little bit curious about just what they were singing about. So they were singing about Delta, and the idea of transition, and I came home and researched that a bit. Now, I am not into geography, okay? Like, geography's not my thing, but I've learned so much about it. So it turns out that actually a delta is the landform that's formed whenever when a river flows into a sea. So it's going out into the deep, And in order to do that, it has to set down some silt. So it has to let go of this stuff that it's been carrying. And it really resonated with me at that particular time, and just about what we kind of have to let go sometimes, or what we kind of have to address in order to kind of move out into like a new space. And I think that's really relevant at the minute, and I've seen this in kind of my practice at the minute. The themes that I'm seeing are like people are really they're really in times of transition, they're really noticing the emotions that they're feeling. And some of the work that I'm doing at the moment, I've noticed people are really using this opportunity to really dive deeper and sit with the uncomfortable feelings that are coming up for them. And they're actually serving as a guide to what they need to do, or what work they need to do in this time. And that has been really amazing.
And that takes courage, doesn't it, to actually sit with the uncomfortableness and be vulnerable with it, and actually just allow yourself to know. It's like, what is this telling us? What's the signal here? What's the learning? And it's, that's what your practice is about, creating that space for people. Is there particular emotions that you're seeing coming up, Ruth?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, there has been a lot of fear, a lot of panic. I think people felt overwhelmed at times. And I think they're also noticing, like it's kind of shining a light. And I've noticed this myself on like the areas in our lives that sometimes carry a little bit of pain from the past. So it's kind of shining a light on some of that. And I think just I've been like, even personally, I've been really shocked at, like, because everything has slowed down, I've been really shocked at how much of our lives actually is the busyness actually numbs some of the feelings that we feel. We're just so like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And those things can be really great things, but that we're not actually catching up with how we really feel. And then that is, we're experiencing that, and our bodies are coming up against that in some way. And it's given us, this time, I think people are diving that bit deeper. They are realizing, goodness, this is something I need to deal with.
And I think for some of us, it's been, okay, let's dive deeper, and accepting it and having that choice. Whereas for some people, I don't know why, but I keep talking about Domino Rally. I must want it's like a throwback to Domino Rally. I don't know for anyone that is listening if that's an age appropriate reference, but it kind of felt like March the 12th was like, Domino Rally just happened. You would set it up, it would take hours to set it up, and then boom, it just kind of caught up with us. And it felt a little bit like some of us that we were catching up with all of those emotions. We were catching up with those kind of and I'm jumped out. And I'm back.
Yay!
Back. Yeah, I am back. You can't see me on the screen, but Ruth is looking fabulous. So that's the best thing. For some reason, I am kind of hovering. So I'll kind of go to, my phone's going mental, which is always fun. We're here. Right. Keep talking, Ruth, because I'm here in some sense.
Talking. So the other one of the
so
other
what I'm going to ask you. All right, go.
So one of the other things I've really noticed as well is just like I've noticed a sense of like collectiveness in terms of what we're experiencing. So, I mean, even just in my client work, I have noticed just different points throughout this period where people are experiencing the same, like they're almost hit by a wave of emotion.
Yeah.
And I felt that as well. And it's kind of, so it's been really interesting just to see the collective pattern of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's really made me think about just how connected we are as individuals and as families and communities and businesses. just that idea of, we've experienced this together.
I agree with that. And I think that, and I'm just going to bring you out of here and then bring you back in. I've now maybe popping up on screen for some people. We've got some crazy, joyful things happening with my phone today. So how do we create a space for people to feel? We're talking, we've got the business community here. How do we create that space for people to feel?
I think it starts with like allowing ourselves to feel. So it's very hard to kind of create a space for other people to feel if we are kind of not feeling ourselves. So I think that starts with ourselves. But I think as well, like I'm really excited about the fact that I think there's room for a different conversation now about mental health. I think previously sometimes we've thought in organisations and businesses a little about that's something that we need to deal with. And it's kind of like we tick the box, whereas now I think there's an opportunity to really have conversations that really matter about how we actually allow people to feel, how we create cultures that mean that people feel comfortable to feel, and that we feel comfortable to do that as well as leaders.
And how do we do that? I mean, what sort of things can we set in place as leaders? What are those things? Because I know part of your role is about going into businesses, and I know what I love in terms of our conversations is, and you mentioned it there, is this isn't just a tick box exercise. We've got a mental health, we've got something in place and sort of fulfilling that, but actually going into businesses and saying, this is what it could look like. This is in helping leaders and helping managers. What sort of things, what sort of conversations could be happening, or what could be put in place? What sort of things are you looking for?
So I think flexibility is really important. Like being able to be flexible, being able to see people for human beings, being really valuing their humanity, and seeing people for. I think this time has given us this sort of sense of, like, all of us have kind of been working from home, and we've had this sense of our lives have become more integrated in a way, where we're kind of like moving from the kitchen to get something to eat into, the office space to do something different. And there's kind of a sense of integration. And I just am really curious about what that would be like in business in terms of mental health, and allowing people to feel and sort of not seeing people as separate, but like them being really integrated in terms of like their families and on what they're experiencing. And we're just really curious about that.
I love that. And I love that thought. I hadn't thought about it in terms of integration. I know that some of the conversations I've been having with just brilliant leaders have been saying that it's not been policies or processes that have got us through this time, it's been humans.
Yes.
And that notion of integration, because there is a separateness that, we were at home and then we're at work, and sometimes we're armoring ourselves up to kind of deal with work and what kind of comes ahead. But that, rather than, I love the thought of that being integration, and your notion of leaders being curious about it.
Yeah, so I mean, I've even found, like, me being at home, and it hasn't been easy. Like, I've two teenagers, so it's like, and you're I know loads of people. I've talked to loads of people who are homeschooling, who are like doing like all these things, but at the same time, it also creates a sense of wholeness, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it creates a sense of, we're not separating out parts of ourselves. And therefore, I think that gives us opportunity to like think from a business point of view around like how we sort of value all those things, how we integrate them into business. Because if people are feeling much more integrated, they are going to have better mental health.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so it's about the wholeness, it's about understanding those emotions that are coming through. And yeah, I mean, if there's more wholeness within you and you feel more integrated, if we're going to look at bottom line stuff, you're going to be more productive. There's going to be,
Yeah.
a different performance level. And so it's how can leaders do that? Is it through conversation? Is it through, like you're saying about that, is having the antennae of being curious about listening deeply?
Yeah, I think all of those things, Kirsty, like being curious, listening, having conversations about mental health in the workplace, and training. I think just equipping leaders to do that well, equipping them with. I think there's a lot of theory that we use therapeutically that can really be transferred into the workplace, that can help us um, communicate better, that can help us sort of facilitate um, emotions in the workplace and help us sort of um, live in this place where we are a bit more whole and we're able to then be our best selves.
I just think about, the integration that needs to happen with people coming off, or you've had some people on furlough, you've had some people that have not been on furlough. There's integration that needs to happen from that perspective in terms of how the team now operates, what that looks like, shared values, maybe having to, or not having to, but choosing to go back and readdress your values. And there has been a deeper care that's come through from people through this, hasn't there? There people are
Yes,
asking how
sure.
you're doing, how you feeling, and it's how we still continue that through into the next transition that we go through, and what silt do we need to let go of that allows us to carry forward lightly and to carry forward in a whole fashion.
Yeah, and I wonder just around like kind of that letting go, like what are the things that weren't working for us before? And I think there are a lot of people who are maybe coming, another theme I've noticed sort of coming out of lockdown is that there are people who actually did feel quite integrated, who did feel quite safe um, in this period of being at home. And now they're moving out of lockdown and back into the workplace. And that feels a bit threatening and it feels a bit scary. And I think just as leaders having the understanding around that and knowing that, understanding that there is a sense of threat and um, how that makes people feel and how they react to that. So whenever we're in that sense of threat, our sympathetic nervous system kicks in and we have a very like visceral reaction to that. So and we can quite often we go into our bodies go into a sense of flight or a sense of fight. So a movement away or a movement towards. And that can lead to lots of different emotions in the workplace. So ranging from like panic and worry and anxiety to like anger and irritation and frustration. And I think I think we kind of need to get to is like kind of noticing those things and being able to deal with them.
And the threat, it seems that the threat could be changing for some people, Ruth, you were saying there. So let's take us back 13 weeks ago. We all knew what the threat was.
Yeah.
It was a very clear threat. And I've certainly felt that. And it's certainly some of the conversations that I was having, a lot of the conversations I was having last week was about, okay, what some people are like, yay, let's get back in the office. Some people are like, not a chance am I getting into the office. Some people are just like excited about going out. Some people not so much. And I think there has been that sort of disintegration, even though we were quite integrated, I think, before, as a holistic fashion, saying this is what the threat is. I think there's been a bit of a disintegration, and where our threat is different for some people now. You know that I love to travel.
Mm.
That is not even something that remotely would come into my value system right now. And so that is something that was a passion, that was a joy to me, that was like I'd get in that little pod of an airplane and think, here we go, people, here's the creativity, and it just would bring me joy.
Yeah, so I think some of the things that felt safe before are not going to feel so safe now. And there's also lots of uncertainty around. So and that I think is creating in people lots of worry, lots of like kind of behaviors where they're kind of doing stuff to make themselves feel safer. And
Yeah.
I think we really need to be thinking about understanding some of that as we move back into the workplace, because you're right, people are going to experience this very individually, and what might be some person's threat might not be someone else's.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. And I think there's been a real shift, a real transition that has come through just very, very recently. And so for businesses, it's about looking holistically at what systemically has kept some things in place, and it's maybe breaking down some of those policies and those processes that actually perhaps cause some stress for people. There was probably some things that cause stress that now no longer exist, so why would we then go back to them? It sounds like having the space and the courage to have those conversations is going to be really important. And also the some training for people, because for some people that's not so easy. Some of us are
Yeah.
comfortable with it, and for some, but I remember there was an article I was reading, and it was about I think it was done by Indeed, so the recruitment people, and it was 97% of people that they had interviewed, and I don't know, excuse me, I don't know the numbers, but it's 97% of people said that they believed that their employer had a massive impact and contribution to their mental health, and therefore had a responsibility. Bob Chapman says that in his book Everybody Matters. He says, you are more important, that you're your primary caregiver, as a leader, and that's a big responsibility. But even if we allow ourselves, it does come down to having an ear and a curiosity and having conversation.
I think now is the time for that. I mean, I think before we were maybe operating out of like a one size fits all kind of approach. And now I think like individual businesses are going to experience this differently. And as people, come back from furlough, or maybe the shape of a business changes, or how we actually do business and where we do it changes, I think that means we're kind of are back to the drawing board in a sense for some of these things. We need to be having conversations about what actually works for an individual business. And I'm quite excited about that, because I think that gives us an opportunity to really impact businesses and impact people, like create spaces for people that actually bring out all their potential.
Well, hell, I'm excited about that too. I'm super excited about that too. We're going to wrap up so that people can get on with their Mondays. Is there anything else that you think that you would like to say, Ruth? Anything that's sort of coming to you?
I think, I mentioned there about sort of the fight or flight response and that kind of sense of threat. And I know we've talked about this a little too. We talked about Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory, and just kind of the idea that actually whenever we have that sense of threat, we're in the sympathetic nervous system. But when we move into a space where we feel safe, or there isn't as much threat, then what that actually opens us up to is curiosity, compassion, groundedness, being really orientated to our environment. And I think that's really important, because that's kind of what we all want for ourselves, but also for our businesses.
I love that.
And I think that theory, and just the whole theory of integration and wholeness, and how we kind of deal with some of these difficult emotions, and what what resonates for us in those, really is important moving forward. So I'm excited about that, and excited about the conversations that we're going to have.
So that was the polyvagal theory?
Yeah, so Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory.
I really loved what you sent me. I like it a lot. Well, Ruth, I could spend every Monday morning with you if you're up for it, because this is just
Absolutely, let's do it,
delightful.
Kirsty.
This is just grand for me. I'll be saying grand all day now. That's it.
Yeah.
I've been Ruth, and so I'll say grand. Thank you. And I think what's been really important is having that conversation about what we can do as a business and as leaders. I full-heartedly agree with you that in some situations we have been doing one size fits all, and this is about being individual and given an opportunity. And then, as you say, the possibility is more creativity, more compassion, more care. And as human beings, hell, we need a lot more of that. And I think we deserve a lot more than that. Thank you all for tuning in. There's loads of people saying hi. Hey, Mark, it's lovely to see you. So Mark was saying about seeing you again, Mark Houston.
Hi, Mark.
So sounds so much better when you say Mark. And Nicole is definitely, you were saying you're a brand builder. You are definitely a brand builder there. And she will love the brand that Ruth has got, and Susan as well. Thank you so much. What a beautiful way to spend the morning. It's Ruth Major on LinkedIn. So you'll find, is it the page is set up as Common or Lisbon Common, or?
Yes, it's set up as Common Wellbeing and Mental Health.
Wonderful. Look for them, look on the page, say hi. There is brilliant work that they do. And that's what the intention of LinkedIn Live is, so that I can bring you brilliant people. And if you haven't heard of them, one, that's rude. Now you have. Go and speak to them, for the love of God. You could hear her voice in your ears all the time. And brilliant people that I've got coming up, which I'm super excited about. Next week, I have the Clear Thinkers. So I'll have Bev and Kate here, who are wonderful humans and allow you to, their gift of creating a space of thinking and a space of play is just brilliant. And so I'm delighted to be able to start next Monday with them. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you guys. Have a wonderful week. I have a feeling that it's going to be a great one. Big love to every single one of you. Stay super safe, stay super well. Thanks for tuning in and giving us a little bit of your morning, or indeed whenever you've watched this. Go forth and be wonderful, guys, and thank you so much.